Hey guys, this is Ollie with 10 Points to Ponder. It's been a while since I've done a video. I think part of it has just been the summer and busyness with business, but also there was this thought in my mind that in many ways I felt like I'd said all the things that I wanted to say, that I'm a big picture person, and so I've kind of already laid out in my prior videos really the battles that we're facing, the fact that there are two lines of thought that are kind of creating some of the cultural issues that we're facing. And one line of thought is that human nature is just improvable and changeable, and so you can just all we need to do is give our rights and freedoms away to those who are enlightened, and they'll lead us into a new heightened state of being. And then there's the other thought, which is more like conservative principles, which is simply that human nature is flawed. We're all sinners, and we as people have been endowed by God with certain rights. We don't get our rights from any person who doles out what we can and can't do, but instead we're all made in the image of God. We are sinners. We need a rule of law, and we need to have freedom as much as possible, limited obviously in order to allow us to live in society. We don't want license. And so those are the things that I feel like I was constantly talking about. And so in many ways I just kind of was like, well, here's same issue, same exact issue. And I was just kind of getting the sense that I felt like I just keep repeating the same things. But then I watched the documentary "What Is a Woman" by Matt Walsh, and it's one of those things where again you realize that there's an importance in declaring the truth and sharing the truth, and you know, Matt Walsh did a great job of expressing the absurdity of these arguments that deny the basics of biology, while not overtly in any way talking about Christ. And I think that he did that because he didn't want the easy and lazy response to be, oh, that's because you're just religious zealots. But instead, he wanted to state that even apart from religion, there is a natural world, and there are things that are natural and unnatural. And so I instead want to talk about the scripture and talk about some of the things that we're seeing here in society. The first being what's gone on with, by the grace of God, Roe v. Wade being overturned, which doesn't necessarily end throughout, but instead allows the states to make the decision. Where I'm here in Colorado, and Colorado's made the decision to be the most extreme on of almost any other state, in that they don't even want to have any sort of restrictions, even though most people would at least limit it to the first trimester anyway. This decision has brought out a lot of darkness and religious fervor. It's exposed the fact that ultimately this has always been about never having to deal with the consequences of the actions that you take. They might try to obscure the argument and obscure the issue by talking about exceptions, but that's less than 1%. So the rest of us are essentially just birth control. And it even gets sicker because it's birth control based upon the how good the relationship is with the father of the potential child. It's birth control based upon whether the potential child's father has money or not. And so the entire value of a human being is no longer intrinsic, but it's based upon whether I'm feeling like you're valuable. And that's the evil and demonic nature of this. When they talk about women's rights, it's like, if you don't please me, or you're inconvenient, or for some reason you cause a burden upon me, or if your father doesn't like you, then you have no right to exist as a human being. And then at the same time we decry and talk about in this culture of death and all these mass, when it's one in the same. And it might even be a result of the same. When you devalue life, then life is less valuable. And so on one hand, we're trying to do all this legislation that doesn't get to the core of the fact that we do not value human life in the way that we ought to, as evidenced by the amount of unborn children that are going on throughout America for the sake of basic birth control. That's what it is. It's for convenience. And so, I'm pretty passionate about this issue, and what the overturning of Roe v. Wade has shown me and revealed again is just how demonic and how evil the activities of those who are in support of are. And you get some Christians that come out and talk about, we just need to be compassionate and we need to be caring, and yet we miss the main point. Is the fetus a person? Can you person when you are faced with a situation in which it's going to be an inconvenience for you? When you're faced with a situation in which it's going to create some sort of hardship? Of course the answer is no. If the fetus is a person. And no one making these arguments about, you got to care about the women, and they're making such a hard decision and all. No one here wants to talk about the baby, wants to talk about whether the fetus is a person or not. And so, it's something I've talked about over and over again, and I feel like there is just a prevailing darkness and cloud over the eyes of people, and it's evidenced and shown in the scriptures, and we are living in these last days when people's minds are so darkened that they're unloving, they're uncaring, they're devoid of natural affection. The natural affection that a mother should have for her child, they're devoid of natural affection. And so that's one issue. Second issue is that great scripture. I think it's in is it Philippians, Galatians, where he's like, beware the mutilation. Beware the mutilation. Now we have doctors approving the mutilation of young children because they think that that's going to affirm them and make them feel better. And what's shocking about this is that this is probably one of the greatest crimes that's now being committed. I mean, obviously, number one, this is a strong second. When we have gotten to the point where a person can simply state that they identify as something other than male or female, and can go to a doctor, and instead of the doctor rightly diagnosing that this person has a mental illness and is dealing with some unresolved issues. Instead, you have doctors actually going and performing this surgery. Now, I've used this example before. Imagine a girl that is like 90 pounds, just like skin and bones, and she goes to the doctor and says, "Hey, in my mind, I feel like I'm fat." And then imagine that doctor putting her on a weight loss regimen and telling her to take some diet pills, or offering her gastric bypass. That's the stupidity that we're talking about. Obviously, that doctor would rightly diagnose that this person has a mental disorder, probably anorexia, and proceed with referring them to the right psychological treatment. Except now, people are going to these counselors, and these counselors have all been taught, they've been brainwashed through the school system, through the education system, through TikTok, through social media, to affirm whatever it is that the person wants, even if it contradicts reality. And what I loved about the documentary, What is a Woman, is it at the core, the battle that we're fighting is not necessarily the transgender issue, it's the issue of truth. If I can choose to state that I'm something that is not real, if I can choose to say that my identity is something that's not real, then we have no basis of even being able to do mathematics. Because, you say 2 + 2 is 4. I say it's 5. We've got to be able to make logical arguments and be able as a society, in order to function, to know reality. And it comes to the core question of what is reality, and is truth something that is created? So we create it based upon how we feel. So if I want to identify as a woman right now, if I want to identify as a bat, if I want to identify as a cat, then I can. Or is truth that which conforms to reality, which is something that we must discover by testing? And testing is as simple as Adam did in the Garden of Eden, where all the animals were brought before him, and he says, okay, that's a dog, and that's a tiger, and that's an elephant. And he looks at all of them, and he's like, none of these is suitable as a mate for me. And then a deep sleep falls upon Adam, and then part of his rib comes out, and a woman is formed, and he says, whoa, man, that's a woman. That's something different than me, and I like it. That's separate and different from me. And so we're eliminating these very foundational issues of truth in our society. And I do not know where to move forward with this channel and what sort of things I want to talk about. But I do want to just share my heart, at least on these issues, and hopefully I can just continue just talking just like this. I'm not going to do edits or cuts. I'm just going to talk, and hopefully it gives you guys something to think about. Maybe it confirms things that you've been thinking, and we have a good exchange of ideas so that we can get to the truth, which is discovered and not created. My name is Ali Schwaga, and this has been 10 Points to Ponder.